another installment of the South African Rally Raid Championship, the most exciting form of motor racing in the country, and the only place you can see the fearsome Dakar Rally monsters compete on local soil. This is round 2, the Sugarbelt 400, and all the action is brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Pirelli. Welcome back to SARRC Racing and round 2 of the 2023 championship. This time round, the Rally Raid circus moved to the KZN town of Eston, roughly an hour inland from Durban. The Sugarbelt 400, as the race is known, has featured on the calendar in the past, but the 2022 race was cancelled due to the devastating floods that swept through the province of KwaZulu-Natal last year. This year, however, the weather held for the race, and even though the temperatures were mild, the action was certainly hot. The DSP was again set at the Beaumont Eston Farmers Club, where the race HQ was also situated. The event featured the Pirelli qualifying race, which was scheduled to take place over a distance of 50 kilometers, followed by 2 race loops totaling 160 kilometers each. These loops were split between a southern and northern loop, offering a mix of terrain to the competitors. With that, let's jump straight into the meaty details of the championship to date, as well as the action out on the Sugarbelt, starting with the lads in Class T1. This class has been highly competitive throughout 2022, and the battle seems to be continuing unabated into 2023. Defending champion Eben Besson was edged out in round 1 of the championship, and finds himself in 3rd place in the title standings. Former bike racer Nick Pienaar was in 2nd, but the top spot after round 1 belonged to Johan de Bruin in his red-lined Revo. We caught up with the man himself prior to the start of the Sugarbelt 400.
It's different having the target on your back for a change, and I think we got very, very lucky at Molalon.
While the plan was for the Pirelli qualifying race to take place over 52 kilometers, a fire broke out along the route, and while a large portion of the field managed to complete the full distance, several crews had to be rerouted as a result of the fire. The organizers were forced to truncate the timings at the 20.29 kilometer mark, which favored some crews more than others, but this was the only fair solution to the problem. The dice came up snake eyes for De Bruin and co-driver Gerard Skitter, as the pair posted only the 6th fastest time in qualifying. This left them as the 17th car on the road, and the best part of a minute behind the pole sitters. Ahead of De Bruin, Johan and Sean van Staden went just 2 seconds quicker, clearly showing how timings were in the shortened qualifying race. Nick Pienaar and Carl Swanepoel in a red-lined Motorsport Revo narrowly missed out on a podium finish. But when the dust had settled, the top 3 qualifiers were Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland in 3rd place, trailing Eben Besson and Leander Pienaar in the Team Hilux Rally Raid machine. In the end, our ever pole position went to young Jaden Els in the King Price Extreme SVR, with the experienced Alvin Fonk reading the notes. They set a time of 16 minutes and 44 seconds, 8 seconds clear of Besson and Pienaar.
We went quite well up to just before the first split, and then we wrong slotted, so luckily this the split where they cut the qualifying time helped us now.
And here's confirmation of Els and Fonk leading the pack, ahead of Besson and Pienaar in 2nd, and Schroeder and Bland in 3rd. This was race day at the famed Sugarbelt 400, one of the iconic races on the calendar. And although there was some rain predicted for later in the day, the race got underway in dry conditions when the flag was waved shortly after 8 a.m. It didn't take long for the battle to heat up. In fact, it returned into a full-scale war between the main protagonists, while the rest was simply in a fight to survive. Newcomers Gerard and Rudy Heinlein did not survive their Sugarbelt baptism of fire, and neither did Daniel Schroeder and Ryan Bland, who were considered to be contenders for a win here in KZN. It was an eventful race for the father and son pairing of Johan and Sean van Staden, who stopped their Renault Duster to help Jürgen Schroeder and Stuart Gregory back onto their wheels, after the latter rolled their Nissan Navara. But it seemed like no good deed gets left unpunished, as the van Stadens then ran into trouble of their own that prevented them from reaching the finish. Someone who did reach the finish was the red line pairing of Johan de Bruin and Gerard Skitter. These two came into the Sugarbelt as championship points leaders, but the race gave them an opportunity to do some character building, as they had to deal with a number of difficulties. The pairing persisted and earned some points for finishing in 7th. They were beaten to the finish by the 18-year-old lady driver Aliyah Kolak, with the experienced Rian Kreiling reading the notes in a red-lined VK50. It was the first taste of South African soil for the lady from Dubai, who at just 18 has a great future ahead of her after recording a 6th place finish in Class T1. South Africa is proving to be a popular playground for international crews, with regular visitor Jürgen Schroeder and local navvy Stuart Gregory reaching the finish in 5th place. And that's after surviving a roll and getting some help from the Finstadens early on. We are now nearing the business end of the Class T1 field, with 4 crews still in the fight for the 3 remaining podium positions. The contenders: 2 Team Hilux Rally Raid Hiluxes piloted by the Blickner brothers Fushian Batis, and defending class champions Eben Basson and Leander Pinot. The red-lined Revo of Nick Pinot and Carl Swanepoel, and the King Price Extreme SVR of Jaden Els and Alvin Fonk. And this is how it played out. Pole setters Els and Fonk were first out of the blocks, but the pairing started to lose time towards the end of Loop 1. Fonk was feeling ill, and the pair lost the lead to the red-line Revo of Pinot and Swanepoel at the halfway mark. In fact, they had no choice but to replace the experienced navigator with Henry Cohn, who became available after their Class T1 Plus car was forced to retire in Loop 1. Meanwhile, they were also passed on the timesheets by the rapid Hilux of Basson and Pinot, and found themselves in a fight for the final podium position against the second Team Hilux Rally Raid car in the hands of the Blickner brothers. In the end, the Blickners, in only their second year in the sport and their first ever Sugarbelt, missed out on a podium finish by just 67 seconds. And that after 400 kilometers of gravel road racing. Youngster Jaden Els, with Cohn in the hot seat, recovered well to claim the 3rd step on the podium after an eventful race. And although second place was probably not quite what the defending champions had in mind before the start of the race, a second place finish would have been a decent way to get their title defense on track for Eben Basson and Leander Papis Pinot, who had an eventful race that included a number of punctures and getting stuck in the ditch. And staying out of trouble is exactly what Nick Pinot and Carl Swanepoel did from behind the wheel of their red-line Revo. It was a great performance from the former motorcycle racer, who claimed his first victory in the hotly contested T1 class. The scoreboard confirms the 8-minute difference between Pinot in first and Basson in second, with youngster Els rounding out the podium positions. The Blickners finished in a fine 4th ahead of Schroeder and Dubai driver Aliyah Kolak, with the Brain claiming the final Class T1 points. And finally, the well-deserved taste of victory after a tough battle against the competition, as well as the tough terrain the Sugarbelt had to offer. Needless to say, Pinot was satisfied with his maiden victory.
Long day in the seats, but it seemed to pay off, so we're very, very grateful for the result.
Next up, let's take a look at Class T, which remains one of the most cost-effective entry points to the sport of rally raid racing.